Live, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tio and the Arcane Bear. I've got another wonderful episode for you today, right on perfect time as Cardano starts to break out of one of its previous positions. Now, I had a great interview with Charles Hoskinson of Cardano just a few days ago, so if you haven't yet, make sure you follow and subscribe to the Arcane Bear channel and check just below where you'll be able to follow that podcast. I had a wonderful time chatting with Charles, and that really sold me, not the technology, but the people. And I've always been a kind of a people-interested person, and Charles is an absolutely brilliant person. So I had a really good time chatting with him. Please do make sure you check out that podcast and interview, because I believe it was a very inspiring one for me, and it again really sold me on the long-term vision of the people that are creating this type of technology. So what we're going to do right now is dive in. You should see Cardano on the chart. Now, if you have been studying with us for quite some time, or if you're new to the channel, we are big fans, and we study something called the Wyckoff trading ranges, and for good reason. It is a very, very powerful way to make assessments of the market. Now, Cardano has been added to my permanent watch list, as it's been added to my permanent interest as well, due to the previous podcast. And I think that this is an important way to go, because in the venture capital sector, sometimes you want to be able to pivot, which means you're not betting on an idea so much as you're betting on the people that are building that vision and trusting in their long-term interest of that vision from a much deeper level. So if we start to go out to the daily here, well, this is where we'll kind of start this conversation for Cardano. Now, for those of you that have been studying with us, again, you will recognize this beautiful horizontal trading range that we had starting to take place, and the spring that took place in March. Now, let's just quell all of the silly maximalist thoughts right out the gate. If you had bought Bitcoin on March 11th and rode it till today, you'd have approximately 10x. But if you had bought Cardano and rode it till today, you'd have 24x. Now, I don't think you need to be a genius at mathematics to understand that Cardano produced twice as much gains, and if you're simply interested as a capital investor, that's a huge difference. 14 times higher approximately than Bitcoin today had you entered at the same time in the middle of 2020 on March 11th. That's important for two reasons. Number one, I'm not here just specifically for the technology. I'm here because of the interest in choose your own money stories. And right now, it doesn't really matter what money you want to choose. If you want to pay us in Litecoin or Ethereum or Bitcoin or Cardano, I'm happy. Ethereum, great. Link, sure. Avalanche, why not? Because to me, this story of free choice money and voluntarism is more than just the technology that underlies it. And I'll subjugate kind of in this conversation that's been going around Doge as well, but let's focus on Cardano, because I believe that the underlying tech here is still obviously much better, and the visionary behind it, I trust. So once we saw the spring, we saw a beautiful SOS outside of the horizontal trading range, followed by a nice backup phase right down to the POC. For those of you that have been studying that, you'll recognize these things pretty synonymously with our trading patterns. And the other one that we've gone over too, that I think you guys will find quite interesting, is this rising megaphone Livermore pattern. Now, this is how we get to some of these higher conjectures. Why I write ridiculous numbers on the screen like, oh, 50x. And it's funny, you don't get to see them until you kind of join in the fun. But there's this rising megaphone pattern that we had seen multiple times before. We could make a little bit of conjecture on, does it stem from back here? But I do believe it was from the start of March, like all the other ones we were witnessing. The second real key indicator here of this kind of blowout price movement is the rising wedge breakout pattern, which we had witnessed before. So for those of you that have been following the channel on a day-to-day basis, this particular moment here, they're kind of stubbing up against this, what a lot of pattern traders would call a rising wedge, and they think it's bearish. Again, I can't stress enough, just try to ignore the pattern traders at this moment. They don't know a whole lot. I don't mean to be offensive, but that's just apparently the truth. So we had a very beautiful, very tight trading range for Cardano here. What was nice is we caught this podcast right as this breakout was happening. Now, again, none of this is investment advice, but as a venture capitalist, I'm interested in following, or an adventure capitalist, as I like to think of it, is following the flow of money. Where there's money and there's momentum, there's generally something to pay attention to. Now, the market is smarter than you are. So if the market is moving a lot of money into these ecosystems, it's probably time to take notice and not be an occultist or a religious fanatic and be like, oh, praise Bitcoin. It is the Satoshi is a god. Like, shut the fuck up and get the hell out of the way. I want to be a good investor. And my goal here is to create alpha, not create like an alpha and omega of the beginning and the end all of the cryptocurrency world. Like, that's just stupidity to some degree. And you should shy away from anyone who speaks like that. Now, again, this rising wedge pattern we had seen in Ethereum, and Ethereum broke outside of the box, started to continue its backup phase here. Link is in that rising wedge pattern too. And look what Aave did after that rising wedge pattern broke out. I'm going to have to open this Aave where I actually had that segment drawn. And again, the reason why we're making this comparative analysis right now is to show the strength of this pattern as it continues. So, the importance of understanding these continuation patterns as not bearish, but ultimately bullish, is important for multiple reasons. Cardano is already 2,400% up. So remember that. We're already halfway through the initial target of 50x. That means it only needs to double from here, which would be approximately $1. And that's not far-fetched at all. It's actually quite an easy path to $1. And the reason I said 50x is because I'm including our previous March spring. The reason I include the March spring is because that is the literal day the bull market started. On March 11th, when the WHO declared a pandemic, it was the day the bull market started. Write that in your calendars, ladies and gentlemen, because it's an important one to remember. Not the date itself, but more so the psychological aspect of fear and blood hitting the streets. I hope you recognize that one, because further in the future of your life, it will become useful to recognize those psychological moments, because that's what moves markets. Psychology and emotion. Money is almost a secondary of that psychology and emotion coming to fruition. The more investors that are scared about the potential of the future, the lack of, or the liquidity will draw back. It will go into a more safe type of mentality, and the more freedom and open the investor's mind becomes, the more euphoric the portfolio gets. So we've broken out now and are already currently halfway through that 50x move from March. The other percent of this is a pretty easy, clear one. So let's just take what happened with Aave and Cardano as a comparison, and we can see how this future kind of unfolds. So from Aave, the breakout of this rising wedge pattern and approximately the middle of it produced a 77% result. And for Cardano, if we were to see a 77% result from this phase already, we're half of where we're at effectively, it would take us around 80 cents. It's pretty damn close to 50x already. And this is just the beginning of the bull market still. Well, not the beginning, but let's say the halfway mark. We're like halfway through the race of the bull market at this point. Maybe we can be a little bit more, let's be a little bit more lenient, or say like we're 5/12 of the way through the bull market. So we got a little bit of ways to go. The fun is just about to begin, and the bullish sentiment as it breaks through is about to be monumental. FYI, mic is hot again. Dang it, I just can't get these mic settings right. So let's take a look here. Mic is hot again. Oh yeah, look at that. I can see a little red. Okay, check. 1 2 1 2. Okay, that should be better. Okay, back to the BTC share. So because we're making conjecture in the long term for venture capital play, limited amounts of capital in these plays can yield huge results. If we use March as an example, if you'd put $1,000 from March to today, you'd be sitting on $24,000 in capital from Cardano. Now, notice we still measure the alpha of our account in US dollars. There was a big shift in August when the bigger players started to show up that everything started to measure back in US dollars. Now, that wasn't always the case. In 2017, 18, 19, I was always only measuring against Bitcoin, and that's not the case anymore. And this could be because the overall arching perspective of so many new investors are still measuring alpha in US dollars, because that's the common form of payment still. We might see that common form of payment for many more years to come. So I'm not going to bet that the US dollar is going to die overnight. I'm going to be more patient than that, and I'm going to just imagine that, yes, maybe one day in the future we'll all measure our portfolios in BTC. But as far as Elon Musk is concerned, maybe we'll measure it in Doge. And this brings me back to the point of this conversation. When you're looking at technology as money, and you're looking at the very simple conceptual basis form that if you want to pay me in Cardano, sure, I'll accept that. That's what makes a peer-to-peer money. Any digital peer-to-peer money, as long as it has some of these underlying factors, which Doge does, and more importantly, Cardano does an even much better job at, then I think it becomes clear the point of what we're trying to do. which is understand the base concept of peer-to-peer money. Look, if you knew a woman that I was really in love with, like fetishly in love with, and you're like, I've got X amount of her socks, and I was like big into sock fetishes. Now, maybe you could convince me those dirty socks were money. And this is kind of the ambiguity around what money or currency is. If one party is willing to pay for it and one party is willing to accept that money, that transfer can take place. And the underlying technology, whether it's socks or for Doge or a much better use case, something like Cardano, and that solves a multiple layer of other problems, we have to answer those simple questions first. Now, the technology allows it to be cross-borderless payment systems, effectively, almost instantaneous transaction time. And do they hold value from point A to point B? And can they be off-roaded into goods and services at that point of sale? These things make a good money. Now, these are, you can also look at it as fungibility. These are the more like old school terms for it, but it's effectively the same thing. So I'm not going to be ever stuck up on the idea that there's a be-all, end-all technology and that Satoshi is God. And although I'm very grateful for the technology, especially because I was an early adopter of Bitcoin, I don't see how Bitcoin solves the money problems for the underbanked, the underserved, and Cardano, their visionary Charles, at least brings that to the table. Now, Vitalik also does that in his talks around tragedy of the commons and quadratic funding. Fundratic. Yes, Tiho. Nice mix of words. Quadratic funding. And I think these are very, very important conversations to have. Now, some people might think, oh, we're going to go back to gold. That is absolutely a ludicrous understanding. There's no intrinsic value to gold either. It was just a monetary form that was accepted. There's absolutely no way we go back to Stone Age in a digital age, unless we get literally rocked back to the Stone Age by an asteroid. And if that's the case, you have much bigger worries than what kind of money we use. So although some people might like to argue that we're going back to gold, that's absolute insanity. There is no way you can use an asset which can be mined almost infinitely from asteroids when we're talking about flying to Mars. It just won't work that way. And more importantly, we should probably start to evolve out of the scarcity mindset in general and understand that we live in an infinite expanding universe. Although that's a much larger philosophical extant conversation that I don't wish to get into, let's stay present here and focus on Cardano. This move that we're seeing here right now is identical to what happened in Aave, and I believe, again, just as conjecture, Link and Ethereum are not far behind. Now, the interesting part here with Cardano is that we're seeing this even into Bitcoin's strength. Now, in our previous videos, we talked about this run into resistance that we would see, and it looks like we're hitting that now. I believe we'll get a sell-off back to around 33,000, different story. But right now, this is moving in the face of Bitcoin's momentum. So if we go for, well, let's take a look at what else is green in the charts today. Not a whole lot. BTC up 5%, okay, but everything else, Ethereum down 9, Aave down 22, 4% on Aave as I'm reading the dollar price there. Avalanche down 2%, right? Civic is up 5%. That's a kind of a rare and odd one. Litecoin up 2%, right? But Aave still stands out as one of the leaders against Bitcoin right now. And this is a very fascinating thing to focus on, because what we also want to study in the Wyckoff trading range is something we don't go over too often, is comparative analysis. Now, most of you should already by now recognize accumulation, distribution, reaccumulation, redistribution. You should understand effort and versus result. And if you don't, please remember that the disease and the sickness of the new investor is the lack of education and the over-emotional choices that they make because of their watching of the portfolio. And the easiest way to create a new healthy environment to that is to educate yourself and to create logical, non-emotional standards for how you invest. So if you consider yourself an adventurous person and you like learning new things, then go to the links down below and join arcanebear.com/private, where we have a private group of over 500 people where we go over this stuff frequently. And we try, as we're growing our content creators as well, to produce as much valuable content for you around this sector as possible, because it is very valuable to know how to be a good investor. And the more you know, the less you get emotional, and the better your long-term portfolio will be. So Cardano represents one of these interesting points now, where in our comparative analysis, one of these side subjects of the Wyckoff trading ranges is looking at the market as it's moving. And right now, Cardano is outpacing Bitcoin on a day-to-day average. On the day for Bitcoin, you have 5%, and on the day, For Cardano, you have 7.6%. Now that move is not huge, but everything else is red in the face of Bitcoin. That means a lot of people are taking profit from Aave, from Wi-Fi, from BAN, from Omisego, BNT, likely to Bitcoin. And Cardano still stands out a bunch amongst the bunch. This is a very important kind of side factor we haven't gotten too much into, but these are how we find market leaders. And if you've noticed over the last week, Cardano has started to sit in my market leader status. In fact, I might even move it above Link here. Link provides value, but it's a little bit of a different beast, and it provides value to the total ecosystem. You want a collateral asset, smart contract layers, and verifiable randomness, which I believe Charles said was by the Algorand guys, but was adopted by the Link guys. This is open source technology. It's good and important to remember that at one point DVD was the hot shit, but have you seen a DVD? There's no place to put a DVD or a CD in my computer. Hasn't been for almost a decade as far as I can tell. None of these computers that I have in the office right now at all use a DVD. Technology moves quickly. And because of that, because we're venture capitalists in this sector, it's important not to get too attached or too religiously bound to our investments, because we just make clearer decisions because of that. So I think Cardano is going to go a lot higher here. I think in this run, you're probably going to see, let's go in the hour here, we'll make a little bit of conjecture. You can see a nice, beautiful formation of a horizontal trading range that took place over the last 24 hours. Let's draw it in here. And as soon as we started to break out above that, we went high quite quickly. So again, for those of you that are studying, you will probably recognize your primary support, your buying climax, your test, and then bang, as soon as we got above that box, we started to move. I think this is just the start. And also compare the effort versus result, another clear, important part of our study. Here, you have the result of this much supply coming into the market. This is known as effort versus result. Here, you have less supply coming into the market and equal result to the upside. This is important. This is how you measure a bull market. You measure a bull market by less supply coming in. I don't know how so many YouTubers seem to get this wrong, but it's a fact. The declination of the supply coming into the market on a rising price is extremely bullish. And we can see this even as we zoom out. If we go to the 4 hour, you'll see a clear indication of that breakout leaning into this SOS. So here's the SOS, effectively. We could argue that this was the primary SOS as well. And these are multiple. They're not just, we don't get just one SOS and LPS. You get usually multiple SOSs and LPS, but we don't want to get too bogged down in theory right now. Here, declination of supply, aside from the spring, which was here, or the secondary test, because this is a pattern of reaccumulation. We don't measure it exactly the same as we do accumulation. But this declination of supply and rising price, very bullish. Well, did we see that? Oh, look, la-di-da-ta-da. We saw that in Ethereum as well, and we're still seeing that. Declination of supply, rising price. Very, very important. Link, how about Link? Oh, yeah, look at that. Well, again, this is the perfect opportunity to learn something. Declination of supply coming in, rising price. These are all bullish structures. Aave, another great, clear example of that before we broke out effectively. At least on the previous trading range from the buying climax, the max supply coming in here, the decreasing supply, and the rising price. All of these things in Cardano right now lead to even bullisher sentiments. Anyways, I don't know. I'm just making words up now, apparently. That's what happens when you start to freestyle things. You just like try to just fit words in my rhymes, you know. Yeah. Anyways, the importance to recognize again here is that education leads to confidence, and confidence in a move can lead to a logical decision without getting emotional about my portfolio. There's nothing more important than that in the middle of a bull market, because it is so easy to make mistakes. YouTubers and content creators who are selling you leverage ideas are making money off your failures, and do not listen to them. In fact, you should probably unfollow them. You probably, I mean, look, just in general, don't listen to so many people. If you have a decision that you want to make that decision. Take responsibility for it. Take ownership for your own idea, and it will pay off for you. That's extremely important. Nice. Stefan Klaus drops in a super chat. Okay, and just as a heads up, guys, for all the crazy super chats, because we had over $3,000 in super chats yesterday, that's going to our Kiva campaign. I have to wait till it clears, just because YouTube does that and to measure how much it actually was. And then we will drop that in our Kiva campaign probably within the next 48 hours is usually how long it takes for YouTube. So just as a side note. So again, thank you to Stefan Klaus for the 100 Czech kronas. crowns. I'm learning about your guys' currencies through this as well, so I appreciate that. When you miss the Cardano bull market because you're trying to buy it in America is apparently impossible. There are other ways to go about that, but we will go over that in another episode. Right now, I just want to focus on a succinct understanding of Cardano. And at the end of the episode, for those of you that guys give super chats, I will take a look at the coins that you're interested in. But other than that, it's Saturday. It's super sexy here in the jungle, and I have beach time blocked out for the rest of my afternoon after this. So please just understand my time. All of our time is very valuable, right? So enjoy what you have, be grateful for it, and go out and bask in the sun while you have the opportunity to. So the second thing I want to go over here, because there's not a whole lot, like anything that I think that you want to look at in depth, just go to, and if you haven't yet, go type in YouTube and go, okay, well, we probably, actually, you guys are already on YouTube, and you want to type, well, actually, look, just make sure at this moment, guys, please subscribe and like the channel, and you can see our Charles Hoskinson podcast. I should have probably put the links below, and maybe I'll even do that now. But again, the importance of this is there's a lot of in-depth conversation we go into there that I think provides the ultimate value for why I think Cardano is such a powerhouse. So please go back and double check that podcast. I think you guys find it. And I will leave the links in here later below. Maybe I'll even drop it in the super chat now. I don't, let's go like this. Oh, I have to sign, never mind. Okay, I have to sign into the chat. We'll just skip that for now. Once I started to believe and like enjoy Charles, I took a position here the other day. Now that's a different story. Full disclosure, my interest here is in the long-term visionaries that show up to this sector and put in the work. And not only that they inspire by the work that they do. The fact that Charles is willing to come on my show, I'm basically a nobody in this ecosystem. I get 10 to 20 times less views than the biggest content creators. But the fact that he was willing to put in the time to come answer little old me's questions and my pure curiosity and desire to learn more, I think speaks volumes to his character in trying to help educate and share within this space. And that's an important factor to take into account. I am hyper bullish on this particular movement right now. Again, I think this is going to take us to 85 cents probably in the next move. Again, we are early on in this bull market. Back to Bitcoin here just for a second. Bitcoin is still operating as my current collateral layer. We have run into the area of resistance. I think we might even hit around 42,000, and then I believe we're going to drop back down to around 34,000. This is the final areas of accumulation. We may even get a spring down below that, but it seems less and less likely that that's the case. This actually looks like a perfect reaccumulation pattern to me, and I don't think we're going to get anything below $30,000 again here. I think we're going to bounce right off the POC effectively. So we'll keep an eye on that. But again, I still believe we get a run below the creek here, probably coming up into February 26th. We break back above the box up through here through March 11th. And then boom, on the March 11th date, I believe we start the bull market. Now, that's my Nostradamus pick of the future. Take from it what you will, but it's not financial advice. Next thing. Okay, again, shout out to Charles Hoskinson for being such an amazing communicator and being willing to take the time to help educate people like me who are just simply curious and interested in learning about this sector and developing my own understanding of what's happening, because this is a huge evolution of money, and that evolution of money for me was just a pick your own money story. Okay, so I'm going to use the last part of this episode for you to go over some of the community questions and your guys' thoughts. I try to do this in most of my live streams, provide all the succinct information that I can in the first part of that episode, and then the latter part of the episode, which can last sometimes up to 20, 30 minutes, is just go over what you guys are interested in and kind of create some banter. I apologize, and this is mostly opinion that's coming out of my mouth for the next 30 minutes, so do recognize that I'm just talking and I'm discovering it is what I'm saying as I'm saying it. So it's a discovery process, and this is for me strictly for curiosity, interest, and learning's sake as a growing and developing venture capitalist. Okay. So that brings us back to my face for a second, and a super close-up, and I love that we can do that. And I'm going to take a look at here. S says, should I buy, or should I hold ADA or sell now or buy later? You should do whatever you want. I'm not going to answer a blatant question like that when I've already talked very specifically about how I believe. I do think, guys, what you should do, if you're new to the channel, and if you have questions like S, the one that he just asked there, Just go back and look at my other videos. The best time the way to time the markets perfectly is a really good video, and the best investors are dead is another great video. We'll probably do more versions of that just so people can clearly understand it. Because, well, generally if you're asking questions like that, you're new to investing, you're new to trading, and you've been making mistakes every second up to here. The best set will basically just find your way into the market effectively. That's like one of the best things you can do during these times. Okay. Quasar Sword says something ridiculous. People get wrecked betting against Ethereum. Yeah, that's just a silly comment. In general, guys, as a venture capitalist, the best thing to know is to know that you don't know, so you make multiple investments. Anyone acting that religiously about an investment isn't a good investor. They're just a good cultist. And what they've done is they've fallen prey to like, oh, I'm part of the XRP army or the Link Marine. Like, I'm just going to sit here and hodl the line. I think that's kind of stupid, and it's a redundant factor when there's so many ways to become a better investor by educating yourself. So we just try to ignore comments like that, generally speaking. Brian P says, Tio, do you think we are living in a simulated reality and we are all being controlled? Both of those are interesting questions. Charles and I did talk about free will and simulated realities in that podcast, so I definitely check watching that. I suspect, Jennifer Jarvis says, I suspect ETH will be up beyond 10K almost at some point, like when BT says to 100K. That's very possible. Again, but this is all speculation. That's how price product works at this moment. It doesn't actually have to do with real fits and value, and anyone who studies the market will understand that clearly. So take the time and become as well educated about what's going on here as possible. Okay, Phoenix says, great content. Thank you for the honesty. Thank you, Kai. I appreciate that. Sergio says, is there a vid about your indicators? I don't use any indicators here. I'm just following price structure through Wyckoff analysis. And again, guys, the best way to do that is to join our private group. And there's no risk there. We offer refund guarantees for anyone who's not happy. But out of the, I think we're almost 600 members. We've had 5 people that asked for refunds, and I'm pretty sure it's just because they were broke. It probably wasn't our fault. Sorry, just the truth. Because we're probably charging too little. Actually, as a matter of fact, we should just raise the price to $100 right now. Sign up right now before we raise the price, which is actually something we might do. So think about that. Anyways, that's another story. Not today. Ghost Band says, Link made me rich. Awesome. Yes, this is the importance of capturing capital investments in the venture space. A little bit of money will bring you a long ways. Turbo Meyer says, Tio, I'm a big fan of you since 2017. I know you used to be in Populous as well. Can you shed some light on it, please? This is the easiest way to answer this, guys, is when you're looking at venture capital, you're going to fail a good chunk of the time. So getting 4 out of 10 right is really how you play that game. Any of the ones that failed, I just walk away from and I don't think about. So I limit how much money I put into all the venture capital plays I'll ever do. Again, please watch the videos that I did with David Hornick, people that have made billions of dollars in venture capital, and ignore the videos of people like, oh, super millionaire, like billionaires over there. Like, who do you want to listen to? Billionaire or like whatever, your choice. That's my thought on Populous. Think about venture capital style and how that game works and has worked for many years now, because you're going to get them wrong, and you need to account for that in your investing strategy. What do you think about Elgarand? No, EGLD. I have no idea what that is. I'm in Aave. Great. Awesome. Hopefully you got in early. Nitty's Nano says, do you think Doge will ever become anything more than a joke coin? One of the things I find fascinating about this, so let's look at Doge for a second. Number one, it brings us back to the conversation that money is anything two parties are willing to use and accept. That's literally the definition of money. So who cares if it's a joke coin? Does it make a difference? What's the underlying importance of the technology? If I'm willing to be a fetish person enough about socks and I'm going to accept those socks, then that's money. It's just how widely spread and how widely adopted will that be? Well, it kind of depends on those people who are using it. That's it. I mean, the US dollar is a joke coin. Maybe Bitcoin's a joke coin. Maybe that's the joke. Maybe everything is a joke coin because it has no real intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is like your ability to appreciate a sunset, your ability to enjoy each other's company, your ability to just bathe and bask in the vast array of stimulus that the universe offers, and the eclecticness of each of those tastes. The fact that I have guanabana ayahuasca, pineapple, all growing on my property right outside the door. That's true wealth. That's intrinsic value. But that's not what we started to measure things as. Maybe that's the big joke. Maybe money itself is the joke, that we should be laughing at ourselves for trying to store something in value when we're bathed in an infinite array of value. And we've lost touch with that. So maybe it's all a joke. And maybe that's the fun part about this conversation. Now, the other interesting part here is Elon Musk has a fuck ton more money than me. So do I want to bet against the guy who's made multiple innovative companies? No, not necessarily. How many engineers does he have working for him? Well, a hell lot more than my tech team. Well, so he has more money than I do and more engineers working for him than I do? Well, fuck, maybe there's something he knows that I don't. And maybe that's the joke. Maybe the joke is entirely about money and our misunderstanding about the scarcity of value in the first place. As a much larger philosophical conversation, I think it is something very important to meditate on and something that we're all missing. Or could be missing. At least I'm willing to ask the question, did I miss something? Although I don't believe the earth is flat, I'm willing to ask the question and say, did I miss something here? And that's such an important part about curiosity, is to continue to dive in further and ask those questions. So Mr. Smith drops a super chat, says, silver is being attacked by the Wall Street bets guys, and if the COMEX goes down, how long will fiat last? Great question. First off, the primary trouble with this idea about silver being attacked and manipulated is silver is not a limited scarce asset. We know that there's asteroids that fly by that are like made predominantly out of silver and gold and platinum. And we're not that far away from being able to fly rockets, land them, and fly them back potentially, right? So that makes this idea of scarcity in an asset totally ridiculous. And even more importantly, back to the philosophical conversation, maybe that's just ridiculous in general. I don't know, much larger, broader conversation, something to have when I'm 70 years old, not today. But in terms of silver, the other disinsolvent fact is that because we don't know how much is in the ground and they're selling paper cuts against them, if you drag the price of silver up, this microphone, this stream deck, this camera, all this gear becomes extraordinarily expensive, and we don't evolve as a technological society. It is in your best interest that the price of silver can go up. Maybe take that into account. Maybe take into account that the technology that you enjoy to watch this video right now has been brought to you by cheap silver. So quit complaining about manipulation and just invest in something else. That's my personal opinion on silver. Awesome facts. You guys liked my rant on that one. Arcane Bear, please add more educational content for the new and advanced investor, for example, to grow smart power. Yeah, we do include all of that in our private member group. I give as much away for free as I possibly can by doing videos every day and answering these questions. But my main goal here is to build a brand that is self-sufficient so that we have a marketing budget to do good in the world. Our Kiva campaigns are the first step in that process, and the banner flag that we've chosen to adopt because of the natural affinity of helping underbanked, underserved entrepreneurs via technology platforms. So Kiva is a 501(c) nonprofit that helps underbanked, underserved entrepreneurs. And yesterday, during our super chats, I think around $3,000 was given to the super chats that will go directly into that Kiva campaign. So although I try to provide as much free content for you guys as possible, the goal here is to build a brand that consistently do things like help underbanked entrepreneurs. One of the next evolutions of this channel is maybe we'll go out on a weekend, we'll find a very hardworking family who's just had a rough time, and you know what we'll do? We're gonna be like, great guys, we've got this part of our marketing budget, we're gonna spend $2,000 on buying them a food cart and all the food that they need to fill that cart so that they can start their own business, and we'll just give it to them. That's kind of the purpose of the Arcane Bear. So although I would love to give you more free educational videos, all that course content is being built inside that paid group so that we can build a brand that does good things in the world. That's the answer to that question as well. Travis drops in a super chat. It says, why is Antarctica off limits and what do you think could be there? Operation High Jump. Very interesting question. I do not want to go off too far, but I believe that our story and history of the human species has been drastically lied to us, has nothing to do with investing, but it probably has a lot to do with technology and, more important, understanding cataclysms. One of the things I think is that we live in a universe, and more specifically a solar system, that is bound to almost cyclical cataclysmic events, probably somewhere through the Taurid and Gemini, or what they call Perseid meteor streams. And then every now and then we get rocked like a giant planetary shooting gallery. And because of that, there were advanced civilizations here before, but probably not the first. And that kind of puts a dent in the history of most religions and most people's understandings of where we are today. And Antarctica may very well be a big red sore thumb for that exact truth. And I'll leave it at that. Okay, last few questions before we dive off today's show. Guys, remember to give us a thumbs up if you like this content as well. And if you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe. That way, when we go live and you hit that notification bell, you guys will be notified. I'm going to do a live stream every day for the rest of the year. I want to grow this channel to like 70 to 100,000 subscribers so that when we start to do these give back campaigns, they get as much views and eyeballs as possible. Because again, the goal of this brand is to provide more value to you guys so that we can provide value to the underbanked and underserved. That has been my goal since I started this channel, and I stand by that purpose and vision every step of the way until my last breaths, if it need be. Okay, great. Thank you guys all for joining us. I really appreciate your support. And for the, by the way, Mercedes says, we do actually have 6 months and 1 month versions of our membership, arcanebear.com/private. You can find those there as well. Yes, I'm going to put the $3,000 in the Kiva fund. I'm not going to do it until YouTube clears the payment so I know exactly how much it was, because it didn't tell me yesterday. And I'm not just going to guess, because I like Eric and I'm going to have a personal chat with him. So thanks. I'm already doing that. Awesome. I appreciate guys all your support and love. We'll see you again on the next episode. We'll be live again tomorrow at approximately 1 to 3 p.m. depending on what YouTube tells me is the best time to go live. Sometimes we even do a live stream twice, just for some giggles to see how things are going. Again, I really appreciate all your guys' support. The fact that you are helping build this community together means so much to me. The purpose of it, we are starting to breach into now, and that means absolutely everything to me. So I'm deeply grateful. We'll see you guys again on the next episode. This is Tio and the Arcane Bear. Be grateful, guys. I love you. I know sometimes it's hard to reflect that and understand that we're all divine beings, but this universe is set up as like a training ground, I think, to increase the standards of love. And if you give me shit, I'll give you shit right back. But you guys don't, and I appreciate that. So Steel with the Arcane Bear one more time here. We're signing off for the day, and here's the fun little intro that one of our private group members made.